Okay, I guess we can start the third panel, our international panel. In my great honor and great privilege is to welcome you all to this third panel, international panel, on behalf of the organizing committee. Uh, First of all, I'm sincerely sorry for the delay. I guess it's a normal thing in events like this, but sincerely sorry for a little delayed because the half an hour, I guess it's a little delay. Um, First of all, allow me to express my gratitude for the distinguished speakers we have today. Um, at the same time, I have a double role, first the host and the second timekeeper. And each of the six speakers will have 15 minutes for the speech, for the presentation, and I kindly ask you to stick to this limit because after the international panel we will have another panel and we will try to keep the time. I took the title of the conference deep to my heart, and I tried to use AI for one reason. I tried to learn how to properly pronounce the names of our speakers. But if I will make a mistake, it's not my fault. It's Google Translator and ChatGPT, so it's not my fault. Uh, but now, our first speaker is Dr. David Tóth from the University of Pécs in Hungary. Dr. Tóth will address an increasingly crucial issue of this digital age. He will present the speech about the risks and prevention of medical identity theft. This topic, I guess, is highly relevant to the topic of our conference. So, Dr. Tóth, I would say the floor is yours, but the space is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, John Dobry. Thank you for the opportunity for being here. And yes, my name is Dr. David Toth. I'm from the University of Pécs. And the title of my presentation is The Risks and Prevention of Medical Identity Theft. So, why I am researching this topic? Because during the COVID-19 pandemic, the risks of medical identity theft, as we can see from the statistics, significantly rose as health data and administrative records gained high value for public health management and criminal exploitation alike. And in my study, I seek to analyze, clarify the core concepts of identity theft and specifically medical identity theft, and investigate the unique vulnerabilities within the healthcare, especially during these crisis periods as we have seen in the COVID pandemic. So ultimately, the research will propose preventive measures to mitigate these type of risks in the future. Medical identity theft is the unauthorized use of an individual's medical information, such as health insurance or social security numbers, to fraudulently obtain healthcare services, prescriptions, or medical equipment. And this form of identity theft differs from financial, the most common form of identity theft, so financial identity theft, as it not only affects the victim's credit, but also endangers their health by merging their medical records with those of the perpetrator. And thousands of cases are reported annually, especially in areas where healthcare systems have extensive digital record keeping or where access to healthcare is very widespread. So, to the shift to these digital healthcare records, just like in Hungary, we have this system called in short as EST, which is basically the health service space. So, it's a digital um, space for keeping records of medical data of individuals. So in this EST, we try to improve the efficiency, but this type of big databases also raises the risk of medical identity theft on the other hand. While secure data management supports better healthcare, big data increases vulnerabilities, making unauthorized access and data breaches more likely. Because if there is one successful attack against these databases, possibly millions of data can be leaked through these vulnerabilities. So balancing healthcare needs with privacy protection is very important to prevent such a form of crime. Medical identity theft pose these unique dangers primarily due to the consequences of incorrect medical records. When medical histories are altered by unauthorized treatments or procedures, patients may face inappropriate or harmful medical interventions. For example, if an identity thief with diabetes fraudulently uses another person's identity, any future healthcare provider may diagnose the victim based on those incorrect records with diabetes, potentially leading to serious medical errors, misdiagnosis, or giving the wrong um, medicine for the victim. Medical identity theft has been growing with expansion of the digital healthcare records, and I just highlighted a few data from the United States where this phenomenon is more extensively researched. In 2023, the United States recorded over 27,000 cases of medical identity theft. But due to the latency, the real numbers may be higher because in most cases they are doing underreporting this type of crime, as latency research shows this. Healthcare breaches are also alarmingly common, with over 5,000 reported breaches from 2009 to 2022 yearly, exposing around almost 400 million patient records. Large incidents such as the Anthem Blue Cross breach affecting 80 million people just in a single case highlight the vulnerability of healthcare data as well. And also, this is a risk in Hungary as well. We have seen many case studies. So worldwide, it's a big problem, but alongside in Hungary as well. In Hungary, there was a case where a teenager's vaccination slot was misused when an unauthorized individual used her national ID or social security number to receive COVID-19 vaccine, exploiting the system vulnerabilities. And this person who stolen her identity received both shots of the vaccine. In the United States, medical identity theft is commonly reported in emergency services where rapid response needs often reduce data verification rigor. And such breaches not only deny legitimate access, but also risk misdiagnosis for the victims if this false data enters into their records, as other researchers like Mancini highlighted in his study. So preventing medical identity theft requires efforts from individuals, healthcare institutions, and governments. Individuals can protect themselves by securely storing personal documents, regularly reviewing medical bills for discrepancies, and using strong unique passwords for online accounts. Avoiding unnecessary sharing of personal health information also reduces risks. Hospitals and healthcare institutions play a key role by implementing multi-factor authentication to secure patient data and training employees to recognize phishing attempts and safeguard sensitive information. Regular security audits further help identify these vulnerabilities that we have seen in many case studies. Governments support these efforts by enforcing strict data protection laws like in the European Union, the GDPR, and mandating the timely reporting of breaches. Public awareness campaigns educate citizens on the risk of medical identity theft and the effective prevention strategies as well. So together, combined, these type of measures can significantly reduce the likelihood of medical identity theft and protect sensitive health information. So in summary, Medical identity theft is a complex crime that brings numerous risks, impacting victims, healthcare providers, data handlers, and law enforcement as well. Pandemic-related challenges like the unauthorized use of vaccine access and immunity certificate fraud highlight the adaptability of this crime to current events. Although lawmakers responded effectively to the rise in these type of crimes, still it is essential to have education and preventive strategies against such crimes. And lastly, thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tut, for your presentation. I guess this topic is crucial in the digital age, especially from this point of view of medical data. Me, myself, I was, I can say, a victim of a medical theft because in my family there is a member of my family that has asthma and has prescriptions for medication for asthma. And there was a case that her identity was stolen, and the prescription for her name um, uh, were were for the medication for asthma, and it was for the purpose to getting it in Czech Republic, where it's much more expensive. So I guess the topic is crucial. Thank you very much. And now let us move to the second speaker. I have to check is Dr. Balash Gatti connected with us? I'm afraid not.
No, probably not. I also don't see. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see him, unfortunately.
Okay, so maybe he will connect later. So, so now the third speaker, our third speaker is Mr. Hussain Mushtaba from India, from the Child Guidance and Wellbeing Center. His presentation is ethical consideration and regulatory challenges in AI-powered healthcare. So I guess I can give you the, I would say microphone, but in this age, I guess I can say the space is yours.
Uh, Thank you so much. When we talk about the healthcare system in India, very recently we have added the artificial intelligence into the mental health care system. As because last year, in order to destigmatize or in order to bridge the gap what we are feeling in the mental health spaces, a new initiative has been taken that we call as the telemanas. It's where an patient can get connected to the doctors, though both the ends they are sharing the different spaces. So though it is getting the huge number of the calls and the referrals, but this we are in a stage of infancy. But for the policymakers and for the professionals, we feel that there should be some ethical consideration, and there are certain challenges in the artificial intelligence powered healthcare, and which we need to address right now. Talking about the artificial intelligence in healthcare, yes, definitely it has added to the robustic healthcare in India and to the globe as well, in terms of improving the medical process, the diagnosis, the treatment planning, and the administrative tasks as well. At the same time, the healthcare industry is in the midst of its transformation. We have not absolutely transformed it to the healthcare into the artificial intelligence, but we are in the midst of its journey. The causes of this revolution are rising, the total healthcare cost, as well as the lack of healthcare experts. As a result, the healthcare industry is looking to implement new information technology based solutions and processes that can cut the costs and give solution to these rising difficulties. There are certain applications in the artificial intelligence in healthcare in terms of the drug recovery. Artificial intelligence has now into the clinical trials. It has the intervention in the clinical trials. Artificial intelligence has now entered into the patient care, the maternal care, healthcare, overall healthcare robotics, and other devices which are totally driven by the artificial intelligences. So it has, once we talk about the artificial intelligence and the healthcare, on the onset of this, there is the enhanced diagnostic in terms of the healthcare, which we recognize, and and it has we have seen an absolute reformation in terms of the treatment plans, in terms of the mental health spaces to which I am working for the last 7 years. Now the doctors they provide an number of treatment plans to the patient, because in terms of the Mental Health Care Act 2017, which we in the India has implemented in whole of the states, that a doctor is supposed to provide the multiple number of the treatment plans to the patient, and it will be the right of the patient to decide any of the plan. So artificial intelligence, it is helping the healthcare professionals to have some tailored treatment plans so that they can offer to the patients, and it's helping us into the routine tasks, and it is helping us in predicting the patient risks in most of the cases, and the healthcare professionals they manage the health risks very efficiently by using the artificial intelligence. Though these are some of the like positive things about the artificial intelligence, but we have certain challenges, like there is an ethical concerns as well. So the data which we receive through the telephones, or the data which we receive through the multiple number of the applications, we are very much concerned about the ethical concerns. There is an issue of the data privacy and the security, and the integration challenges as well, because in order to calculate the number of patients and the number of the referrals, and the way we transform the healthcare system, and there is a challenge in the integration challenges as well, and we have some regulatory challenges and the legal issues. We can have the best examples where we have the multiple number of the doctors they belong to the different subcontinents, and the patient belongs to one continent, and in case of any medical negligence, so the question of the legal issue and the regulatory comes into the place. And in most of the cases where the doctor and the patient they belong to the same state, or they belong to the same nation, so they can be the issues which may arise in the medical jurisprudence, they can be addressed within such state. But where the doctors they belong to they are operating a patient who is at the distant place, and the doctors they belong to the different states. Now the question arises about the redressal and the legal issues, and cost and the resource constraints are very much in terms of the healthcare and artificial intelligence. There are a few other challenges which we see, maybe the transparency, the accountability, and the liability, which I already disclosed about, where the patient and the doctors they belong to the different states, and though there is no emotional attachment to the patient attached when we use the artificial intelligence, so there is a challenge of the bias and inequity as well. The privacy and the confidentiality, it's one of the major issue. And ultimately, in terms of the healthcare jurisprudence, the patient autonomy which we believe in, and in order to provide the patient an agency, so where the absolute power is given to the artificial intelligence in the healthcare system, so the question remains about the patient autonomy. And while using the artificial intelligence in the healthcare system, there is a huge commercial exploitation as well, and informed consent, the consent, informed consent issue, which usually we address in the healthcare systems, but in the exclusive system of the artificial intelligence, the informed consent and the over reliance. So we live in a biomedical reliance in the healthcare system, but now there is an over reliance on the artificial intelligence, which needs to be checked as well. So in order to give it an robustic framework, we need to establish some international guidelines for the ethical use of the artificial intelligence in the healthcare. We need to have the multidisciplinary collaborations among the artificial intelligence experts, the clinicians, and the policymakers. We need to provide basically, we need to provide the interagency mechanism. So this is not the domain of the healthcare professions only. So we need to incorporate the artificial intelligence experts, the healthcare professionals, the clinicians, and the policymakers. So basically, the idea is to have the interagency mechanism in place. We need to promote the ongoing research into the ethical implications of emerging artificial intelligence technologies with a focus of the ethical practices and continuation of innovations. Artificial intelligence can revolutionize the healthcare system. And while we talk about the revolutionization of the healthcare system, we need to identify how we can give the patient an autonomy, and how we can promote how we can promote and protect the human values and the rights. And with this, I thank you all for having my presentation.
Thank you very much. Oh, I guess that this topic is even though the distance from between India and Poland and Europe, I guess that these issues are very comparable, especially in India, as the country has that many citizens. I guess that the solution of an AI healthcare can make it more efficient, but still it's strictly connected with the negative issues, the ethical issues that that exclude the possibility of implementing it in our healthcare for now, I guess, because this is, I guess, a normal consequence of an AI development that we will have to deal with it eventually. Thank you very much for your speech. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Professor Laszlo Kowalmi from the University of Pécs, Hungary. Professor Kowalmi will present a speech on criminal liability of medical professions. So I guess the space is yours. Thank you. Please turn on your microphone. We cannot hear you.
Teljesen PPT? Mindegy.
Oh, now it's okay.
Friedrich Nietzsche articulated his dilemma more than 150 years ago. Somewhat exaggeratedly, man must heal himself, otherwise his doctor will ruin him. During that era, the doctor was seen as a great white magician in public consequences, and if he made mistakes in healing, there were no foundation for holding him accountable. Over time, social and scientific progress liberated medical practice from the irrational elements of magic, leading to establishment of the domain of medical responsibility. This responsibility exists not only in civil law, but also in criminal law. In the overwhelming majority of risky medical activities, there is success, however, in other cases. Through the treatment of surgical intervention, the patient's health may deteriorate, physical harm occurs, or life is lost. In such cases, the doctor's criminal liability is raised considering that the criminal codes of all time punish these behaviors, such as taking a human life, endangering life, and physical integrity. The issue of risk associated with healing has now become a significant research topic, not only for criminal law scholars, but also for medical science. In the medical literature, there are several definitions of the concept of healing risk, and taking this into account from my perspective, when referring to permissible risks of medical activity, I mean the consciously induced foreseeable danger to the patient's life, health, or physical integrity in the interest of healing, which can occur alongside adherence to rules of the medical profession. The potential adverse effects of a danger process induced by healing risks are generally foreseeable, at least at a statistical level. Thus, the maximum of unwanted consequences can be determined. In my view, the extreme limit of adverse consequences is the state of injury or illness that would not further deteriorate, including death, and would have occurred even without medical intervention. This gives rise to possibility of proportionality as a condition for permissibility. Creating a general proportionality scheme applicable to every case is, of course, impossible. Surgical risk cannot be reduced to primary risk. It is an extremely complex and variable category that depends on the nature of diseases as well as on place, time, individual circumstances, and conditions. Therefore, generally speaking, it cannot be precisely defined that risk must be examined separately for each individual case, carefully weighing and individualizing all factors. In organ transplant, real risk assessment is only possible in kidney transplant because here rejection does not necessarily pose a fatal risk or an insurmountable problem. The risk of heart transplants is so much greater than kidney transplant due to the fact that recognizing early signs of rejection is much more challenging. The, the crucial difference is that kidney transplant, being a parent organ, can also be performed using a living donor, whereas for heart transplants, only deceased hearts are available. In the case of pharmacological treatment, the predictability of side effects is greatly influenced by the fact that only a small portion of side effects manifest during clinical trials, chiefly those that become apparent in acute symptom from after a short period of use. It is almost inventable that the most dangerous side effects are only relevant several years after the drugs in launched. Just think of some side of effect of COVID medication, such as inducing heart problems. The emergency of risky situation generally rests on the mutual decision of two parties, the doctor and the patients. All medical decisions related to the patient's healing, like future-oriented decisions in general, encompass varying degrees of uncertainty, which may be foreseeable at the time of the decision or many become known during the course of treatment. The concept of permissible risk entails two decision-making process. One decision is made by the doctor. The patient or a family member makes the necessary second decision concerning the acceptance of permissible medical risk after being informed by the doctor that the treatment presents increased risk. The patient decides whether to subject himself to the proposed treatment of surgery, which could potentially further harm his health or physical integrity or even lead to death. By giving their informed consent, the patients accept the risk associated with the doctor's actions. I emphasize the distinction between the doctor's decision, this is the risk taking, and the patient's decision, this is the risk acceptance. Is it important to highlight the difference between assuming risk and bearing risk? I personally refer to a medical decision as risk-taking, risk-bearing, and the patient's decision as risk acceptance. Therefore, two concordant declarations of intent are necessary. The requirement to obtain informed consent for surgical procedures represents a limitation of freedom of healing. One side, there is a doctor's right, and another side is a patient's right. However, the freedom to heal does not grant the doctor absolute discretion in his action. Rather, it mandates legal restrictions primarily in the interest of patient safety. Among the restrictions, the most crucial in the requirement for proportionality of risk. An exception exists for measures taken in acute life-threatening situation that cannot be mitigated by other means. And one thing about the organ transplant. For the permissibility of risk associated with organ transplant in the case of living donors, the consent of both the recipient and the donor is necessary, considering that the surgical intervention carried heightened risk for both. Regarding the recipient, the increased risk lies in the fact that according to current medical knowledge, the probability of death due to surgery can be equal to or greater than that of this occurring naturally. The probability of length of survival must also be considered. Any shortening of the expected lifespan is, in principle, as unlawful act. It thus appears that the law cannot permit risks for the recipient in the case of organ transplantation, and this intervention exceeds the limit of proportionality. However, this rigid perspective unsustainable in today's context. In my view, the question of proportionality of risk cannot be framed merely as a mathematical problem in medical practice, not even in the case of severe surgery. Justified risk encompasses much more and can permit the performance of very serious, specifically life-threatening surgeries in hopes of elevating unbearable pain or eliminating a cause that could lead to sudden death at any time, or preventing blindness or partial paralysis, for example, bullet in the skull or a brain aneurysm. For kidney transplant, the risk associated with the surgery can be deemed proportional to patient's interest and avoiding the need for intermittent dialysis and regarding the possibility of normal life. The recipient consent to the surgery is, however, extremely important in the terms of the permissibility of risk-taking, especially because the procedure is considered unauthorized in the absence of consent. In the case of living donor, permissibility of the risk associated with organ removal cannot be framed in proportional terms, as performing the surgery poses evidently greater danger to the donor than opting not to undergo the procedure. Furthermore, even a successful intervention places the donor is in significantly worse position concerning their physical integrity. In the proportionality assessment, the social utility of the risk must always be measured in relation to recipient. However, this juxtaposition can only sustain the permissibility of the risk from a socio-ethical aspect. From a criminal law perspective, therefore, the consent of the donor is must fundamental and necessary condition for the acceptance of risk. Searching diseases on injuries occur on measures in social contests essentially repeating in identical patterns. The probability of success or failing in their treatment can be numerically demonstrated for a given statistical population. In this way, there is the possibility of developing certain variants of activity within healing preventive practice that can be legally defined in terms of risk. By establishing professional methods, the law can create a regulatory framework for medical activity known as the lex artis. Medical practice performed accordance with lex artis includes both necessary risks and the avoidance of unnecessary risk. Therefore, the risk associated with treatment can be subject to the objective conditions of social and legal permissibility. The emergency risk in healing activities involves the following main objective and subjective factors. The risk of surgical intervention can be created due to the abnormal anatomical situation and surgeries performed on oncological conglomerates, where despite the greatest care and utmost attention, complication such as blending, organ damage, or perforation may still occur. The material circumstances of healing activity include all factors external to the condition inherent in the patient and the physician that increase the danger of treatment. Healing conditions differ significantly, for instance, between, for example, a university clinic and a rural hospital, between a well-equipped healthcare institution and one only possessing conventional tools, or between a well-trained, cohesive medical community and one where such cohesion is lacking. The personal abilities of the physician are, in my view, one of the most critical aspects of healing risk. In agreement, I emphasize an experienced physician cannot be placed or par with someone who has just recently completed their studies. Likewise, specialists can be equated with non-specialists. And the last words from me, but in many cases, it's difficult, if not impossible, to establish medical malpractice. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Koualmi. I guess that for me, this topic is interesting because the legal aspects of transplantology are among topics of my science interest. I'm also a professional attorney, so the criminal liability of medical professions are my everyday reality, I guess. And we can say that you have you need to have nerves of steel to be a medical doctor, especially a surgeon, and even more the transplantation surgeon. But to be honest, I didn't have any transplantation surgeons as a client yet. Maybe in the future. So thank you very much once again. Now we turn to Mr. Istvan Hotu. I'm sure he's connected with us from the University of Pécs, Hungary. His presentation is named Competency-Based Leadership Development in Healthcare Management, a case study of Pécs University Clinical Center. So I guess I can give you
Engem most látnak?
Igen, most
Vagy.
van.
Yeah. Dzień dobry, good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. I am excited to share insights from a study on leadership development in healthcare with a focus on the Pécs University Clinical Center. Leadership in healthcare is a complex topic where clinical expertise and administrative responsibilities often intersect. Today, I will explore how competency-based leadership development can address these challenges and ensure effective management in a healthcare instance. Leadership in healthcare is not just about medical expertise. It's about balancing multiple responsibilities, including patient care, research, teaching, and organization management. One of the critical competencies for healthcare leaders is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence allows leaders to build trust, resolve conflicts, and motivate teams in stressful environments. Additionally, transformational leadership is particularly effective in healthcare. Transformational leaders inspires their teams, encourage innovation, and create a vision that others want to follow. Legal and ethical considerations are another crucial area for healthcare leaders. Regulatory compliance, such as adherence to patient rights laws like HIPAA in the United States, is a non-negotiable. Leaders must also make ethical decisions that balance patient care with organization policies, ensuring fairness and transparency in every action they take. Let's now turn the case study of the Page University Clinical Centers. This research involved qualitative interviews with non-clinical leaders to better understand their challenges and competence. The findings revealed several gaps in leadership skills. Firstly, many healthcare leaders were promoted based on their clinical expertise, not their management skills. This often led to difficulties in coordinated teams, strategic planning, and navigating the complex legal landscape of healthcare. Secondly, legal awareness among these leaders was limited. Without proper understanding of healthcare regulation, institutions are at risk of legal violations and penalties. Based on these findings, several recommendations emerged. Structured leadership training programs are essential. These programs should cover management skills, emotional intelligence, and healthcare regulations. Mentorship programs are another valuable tool. Pairing less experienced leaders with seasoned mentors can provide practical guidance on both clinical and administrative responsibilities. Finally, continuous legal education is critical. Regular workshops on laws and regulations can keep leaders informed and ensure compliance. To conclude, effective leadership in healthcare requires more than just clinical expertise. It demands a well-rounded set of competencies, including management skills, emotional intelligence, and a thorough understanding of legal and ethical considerations. Investing in competency-based leadership development programs not only improves organizational performance, but also reduces legal risk and enhances patients' outcomes. As we look to the future, healthcare institutions must prioritize leadership training that integrates these elements. By doing so, we can ensure that our leaders are equipped to meet to the complex demands of their roles. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this presentation and for sharing with us your point of view. I guess the strong leadership is undoubtedly a cornerstone of an effective healthcare management, especially. Thank you very much once again. Hopefully, Dr. Balázs Gatti is connected with us, but still I see that definitely connected is Ms. Yaroslava Menev from Ukraine. So I guess I will.
Yes, I am connected. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe as a kind of I guess a penalty, you can let Ms. Yaroslava first, and then as the last speech, I will give this space to you. So now let us finally welcome Yaroslava Menev from Department of Civil Law disciplines at Kazarin Kharkiv National University, Ukraine. Yaroslava will present the legal regulation and the provision of cosmetology service in Ukraine, problem issues. So I give the space to you. Thank you.
Hello, dear colleagues. My name is Yaroslava, and I am representing Kharkiv National University of Ukraine, Kharkiv Karazin University, and thank you very much for your invitation to this conference. I am glad to be a part of this community today, especially when the topics are so important and actual. And today I want to touch with you my scientific interests, and it is connected with the provision of cosmetology services in Ukraine. So, the activities on rendering services in the field of cosmetology have required a monumental scope in Ukraine. Along with the rapid growth of demand for cosmetology services, there are frequent cases of violation of consumer rights in this area. The legislation that regulates the procedure for providing cosmetology services in Ukraine is significantly outdated and does not meet the requirements of this branch of medicine and of course business, which is developing so rapidly today. All this indicates that the state does not perceive public health services as a threat which can contribute to the spread of dangerous diseases, including infectious diseases. Gaps in the legislation lead to confusion as to what are medical services and what are cosmetology services, misleads the consumer, complicates and sometimes makes impossible the procedure of proving in court the fact of receiving a low quality cosmetology services, lead to a low level of awareness about dermatological services, in particular cosmetic services, and their possible consequences, as well as risk factors for general health, skin condition, and appearance of a person. The current state of legal regulation of this issue in Ukraine indicate that there is no single normative legal act that would clearly define the standards for the provision of cosmetology services. Most of the regulatory documents are outdated and do not meet the requirements of modern legal relationships. In particular, the order of the Ministry of Health of the USSR on measures to improve the cosmetology nature of the population dated 1982, which contains an outdated list of cosmetology services and a list of specialists entitled to provide them, is still in force. The Ukrainian market of cosmetology services is conventionally divided into aesthetic services and cosmetology services. In connection with the division of services into aesthetic and cosmetology, which are provided in beauty salons, they should be guided by different norms of activity regulation. Let us address specifically to the provision of services related to cosmetology, although such a concept is not defined at the legislative level. An important issue is the definition of the term cosmetologist and the qualification requirements for an entity that provides cosmetology services. In the nomenclature of medical specializations, there is a defined specialty dermatovenerology, but there are no such specialists as dermatology or cosmetology. It is worth notion that according to the Handbook of Qualification Characteristics of Employees Professions, there is no such a profession as cosmetologist among professions in the field of cosmetology. The term cosmetologist is used only in conjunction with pharmacists. Such a profession as pharmacist cosmetologist is illegal established. At the same time, according to the occupational classifications, there is a such profession as cosmetician in Ukraine, which means a specialist who is engaged in artificially adding beauty to the face and body. So it is not connected with the medicine. Today, cosmetology institutions employ specialists of various qualifications and educational levels who have usually completed additional training in short-term term courses of cosmetology. After completing such training courses, a person receives a profession that is illegitimate at the country level. This is due to the fact that various certificates, diplomas, or authorizational documents issued after completing such training indicate professions that are not included in the occupational classifier of Ukraine. The authors of the article, monitoring the labor market in the field of practical cosmetology in Ukraine, interviewed more than 200 specialists of cosmetology institutions in various regions of Ukraine, and empirically established that today in the field of cosmetology work everyone who wants to work, regardless of their specialized education. For example, 38% of respondents have completed medical establishments, but although only 15% of them have completed higher medical institutions, 19% of respondents have completed pharmaceutical education, and 37% of respondents have completed technical, economical, pedagogical, aviation, and different other institutions of higher education. And after obtaining the main profession, decided to engage in particular cosmetology after completing irrelevant courses. And 5% of respondents work in cosmetology establishments after graduating from high school, having completed training and cosmetology courses. The lack of qualified personnel is one of the main problems in the field of cosmetology in Ukraine. This is due to the lack of uniform state educational standards for training personnel for the scope of activity, which is a consequence of the lack of a legislative framework regulating and activities of cosmetology establishments. I want to pay attention on some examples from practice, from the court practice, to explain real situation with the services in cosmetology in Ukraine. So the case which was considered in October 2024, so it is a recent case in Kharkiv city, is a very illustrative example of violations in Ukraine by cosmetologists during the provision of services. The case involves a cosmetologist from Kharkiv who was registered as an individual entrepreneur, providing cosmetic services. In March 2024, a client came to her salon for a laser lipolysis procedure. During the procedure, the cosmetologist administered local anesthesia using lidocaine. However, the investigation revealed that the dosage of the anesthetic exceeded the permissional limit by at least 15 times. This overdose caused a critical deterioration of the patient's health. As the patient's condition worsened, the salon staff attempt to perform anti-allergy therapy, but failed to improve the situation. The patient's health continued to decline rapidly, prompting the staff to call for an ambulance. Tragically, the patient died during transportation to the hospital. The court determined that the cosmetologists lacked the necessary qualification to perform invasive cosmetic procedures, particularly those requiring the use of anesthesia. Although she held a degree in technology of perfumery and cosmetic products and was qualified as a pharmacist cosmetologist, she did not have the medical training required for such procedures. At the time of the accident, she was also the intern specializing in surgery, but had not completed the necessary medical education to safely conduct procedures involving local anesthesia. The court concluded that her actions violated safety regulations and professional standards, directly contributing to the patient's death. On October 4th, 2024, the cosmetologist was officially charged under Part 1 of Article 119 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, which addresses negligent homicide. The insufficient qualification and lack of compliance with safety standards were identified as a key factor leading to the fatal outcome. So another example is the decision of Volyn Region Court of Appeal. This case involves a cosmetologist who provided a biorevitalization and filler injection services in unsuitable conditions, including her own home and rented premises that did not meet proper sanitary standards. Following the procedures, the client developed significant complications such as hematomas and facial swelling, which were lately confirmed by medical examinations. An evaluation by another beauty salon revealed that the procedures did not produce the expected results. Further investigation showed that the cosmetologist had incorrectly selected the drugs, violated dosage requirements, and used improper techniques, all of which posed risks to the client's health. The appellate court determined that the cosmetologist had exceeded her professional authority by performing invasive procedures without holding a medical license or the necessary qualifications required for such interventions. The court ruled that her actions violated existing legislation and ordered her to refund the client near 100 euros for the poor qualified services. However, the court denied the client's claim for moral damages. It reasoned that the client had consciously chosen the services of a cosmetologist outstation rather than a dermatologist, and did not exercise due diligence in verifying the specialist's qualifications, licenses, or the conditions under which the procedures were performed. The court emphasized that clients must carefully select qualified specialists, particularly for invasive procedures, to minimize risk. So this case, the last case, highlights a significant regulatory issue in the cosmetology field, where services requiring medical expertise are often performed by individuals without the necessary qualifications, or adherence to safety standards results in risk and complications for clients. The above-mentioned case outlined another problematic issue in the field of providing cosmetology services, namely patient-informed consent. If we are talking specifically about cosmetology procedures, they must be performed by a doctor. It becomes clear that informed consent is an effective tool for awareness of these issues for consumers of cosmetic procedures. However, as can be seen from court practice, these requirements is ignored by almost all entities that provide cosmetology services. Informed consent is extremely important in cosmetology, as most procedures, particularly invasive ones, have potential risks, and patients often have high expectations of an aesthetic outcome. Informed consent contributes to the patient's awareness and conscious decision-making by the patient regarding this treatment, as well as ensuring the voluntary nature and proper recording of such decisions. When properly documented, informed consent disciplines both patients and healthcare professional and reduces the risk of conflict situations. Informed consent is an important element of compliance with bioethics, in particular medicine ethics. and current Ukrainian legislation. So, and one more issue I want to touch a little bit that is very problem in Ukraine. It is about the licenses, because when cosmetology provide some services connected with intervision, so they should have the license, but I think that almost all or a big amount of cosmetologists don't have this license. And despite the fact that the requirement for licensing is an important guarantee of receiving quality services and sometimes preserving the health and beauty of the patient, the responsibility for activities without obtaining such a license is only a fine from 700 hryvnias for the first offense, and from 400,000 hryvnias for a repeated offense within a year. It is obvious that this sanction is quite loyal and rather moderate, considering the price for the cosmetology services in Ukraine. For example, the average price for lip contouring, depending on the drug, ranges from 800 hryvnias to 13,100 hryvnias, and collagen stimulation with polylactic acid can cost approximately 1,400 euros. It is enough to provide the service even to one patient, and the cosmetologist will be able to pay a fine for operating without a license. Such a situation, of course, creates favorable conditions for further prosperity of cosmetology without properly issued documents. So, therefore, providing and receiving cosmetology services in Ukraine are a risk, because the area is not legally regulated and not fully controlled. So I have now, I should say that I have more questions and answers. Cosmetology services as a type of activities has a complex nature, because it accumulates both medical and legal aspects. In addition, the results of the service affects both a person's appearance and health. There is no legislation in Ukraine that would regulate relations in the field of cosmetology. This situation has an adverse effect on a legal regulation and control over the procedure for providing cosmetology services. The right of consumers to protection in this area is not fully realized. Different judicial practices have been formed for typical cases. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this very interesting topic. I guess this conflict of cosmeticians and doctors is vivid as well in Poland, not only in Ukraine. I guess that maybe we could find many more countries that have the same issue. In Poland, there is also a problem, an issue with the current Polish legislation, because we have only a legal act according to cosmetics as implementing of European directive. And we have no legal act regarding to the professional of cosmetologists. So that's also an issue on our Polish ground. Thank you very much once again. And the last speech, I guess, will be held by Dr. Gatti. Forgive me for this, I guess, a kind of penalty, but as Dr. Todd started with the risk of medical identity theft, your presentation will be a great buckle to end this international panel. Dr. Gatti will delve into protection challenges in medical law, a topic that complement our first presentation, addressing to the broader legal frameworks necessary to assure both patient safety and privacy. So, Dr. Gatti, if you are connected with us, the space is yours.
Yes, I have already shared my screen. My question is that every one of you can see my first title slide.
Yes, we see.
Okay, so thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And again, I apologize for the delay. My presentation focuses on the challenges we face in medical law and with special regard to data protection. As healthcare becomes more digital, the management of patient data grows more complex. So I will touch on Hungary's regulatory framework, specific GDPR applications in healthcare, and the practical issues like technology, data sharing, and breaches. No, just my last question. So I switched slides. Can you see my next one?
Yes, everything's okay.
Okay, thank you. So the digitization of healthcare has been quite rapid, and electronic health records, telemedicine, wearable devices, these are now standard. In Hungary, most hospitals now use digital systems with the patient records, and this has improved the efficiency, but it also raises new legal questions. For example, who has access to patient data? Would they be protected from misuse? But the benefits are clear. The risks are something we need to address more seriously. In Hungary, data protection is regulated by GDPR and overseen by the National Authority for Data Protection and Freedom of Information, or NAIC. And the Data Protection Authority regularly audits healthcare institutions to ensure their compliance. And in 2023, they issued several fines to hospitals for data security lapses. These cases highlight common problems like insufficient data encryption and poor staff training. And while the GDPR provides clear rules, the application in medical settings can be challenging, especially when balancing legal requirements with the patient care. Medical data falls under GDPR's special category of sensitive data. This means it has stricter protection requirements, and processing this data usually requires either informed consent or a clear legal justification like public interest. However, relying solely on consent can be risky from a legal point of view. Patients often don't fully understand how their data will be used, and on the other hand, public interest may justify some uses without explicit consent, for example, in national health programs. And therefore, it is very important to strike the right balance for compliance and patient trust. New technologies like AI and big data are the ones that transform healthcare the most. For example, AI is now being used in Hungary to support cancer diagnosis, and these systems need a vast amount of data, which can conflict with GDPR principles like data minimization. Another issue is anonymization. Even if we anonymize patient data, it can sometimes be re-identified when combined with other information. So the real extent of anonymization is quite vague. Rather, we can talk about pseudonymization. So this creates legal and ethical challenges, and policymakers and regulators need to provide clearer guidance here. Healthcare is a common target for cyber attacks. In Hungary, hospitals reported several major breaches last year, many linked to ransomware, and these breaches can expose sensitive patient data and disrupt care. GDPR fines are just one consequence. More importantly, breaches damage public trust, and one recent case involved the hospital accidentally sharing sensitive medical records online, and incidents like this highlight the need for better security measures like encrypted storage and regular system updates. Data sharing across borders is, again, it is increasingly common, especially for international research projects or patient treatments abroad. However, GDPR imposes quite strict conditions. For example, data can only be sent outside the EU if destination country meets the adequacy standards or the specific safeguards that should be in place. Hungary recently faced issues in an EU project where proper safeguards weren't in place for data sharing with non-EU countries. this cause delays and raise legal concerns, and clearer processes should be needed for these scenarios about the audits beforehand and so on. Ensuring compliance requires practical steps. First, healthcare providers should conduct regular data protection impact assessments, especially when introducing new systems. Second, staff training is very important because many breaches happen due to human error. And third, technical solutions like data encryption and secure networks can significantly reduce the risks. And final, legal advice should be sought very early, especially for complex situations like cross-border projects. So such a proactive approach would be the most effective. GDPR gives patients important rights over their data. They can access it, request corrections, and sometimes have it deleted. However, healthcare settings often face many practical challenges, like deleting medical data might conflict with legal requirements to keep it for a certain period, and transparency is again very critical here because patients need clear explanations of their rights and how their data will be used. So better communication builds trust and reduces the conflicts. And to conclude, protecting patient data is a shared responsibility for healthcare providers. Compliance with GDPR isn't just about avoiding fines. It's about maintaining patient trust and supporting high quality care. In Hungary, we are making progress, but the challenges remain, especially with new technologies and cross-border data sharing. And the way I see a collaborative effort between regulators, legal experts, and the healthcare providers should make a lot of things easier. But of course, this is a an ever-going and ongoing process. And thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, we concluded our all 6 presentations. Now we have only a few minutes, but still a few minutes for discussion and maybe some questions. I invite you to share your thoughts or pose your questions to any of our speakers. Does anyone want to take a stand? Sorry. Anyone wants to take a stand? I don't see any hand up. So I guess on behalf of organizing committee, I would like to thank each and every one of you, dear speakers. Your speeches were enlightening and engaging. I guess especially for me, we encourage you